Diamond Matt channel, welcome. Right, I'll start immediately today by saying thank you to WJ Rayner, a new patron I got. Thank you very much, WJ Rayner. They were clever because they paid for a full year in one go, and by doing that, saved 10%. So just so you're aware, there is a way to get 10% discount rather than the monthly installments. Just pay for a full year in one go. Might be more suitable for you. Yeah, I also patrons on the channel because a little bit of financial help just enables me to continue doing it, replacing worn out tools and stuff, and just a little bit of help for all the time and effort it takes to make these videos. So basically I had over 20 years experience making sort of high-end bespoke handmade jewellery, so I've got a lot of deep insight into jewellery making that you likely won't find elsewhere. Right, so let's get into the video. A little bit different today. There's a bit of a backstory yet before I get going. Back in 2017, my late 30s, I decided to really fix myself up. So just anything I could think of to improve myself. So I was a bit of a hoarder. Okay, start throwing stuff away, which is brilliant for self-improvement, a really empowering thing. If you've got stuff, just chuck it away. It feels so good. Selling things that had value, so making a bit of money extra on the side. I was just getting my hair cut more often, going to the dentist, paid off credit card debt, saved up, learned about investments, just anything I could think of. Eating better, sleeping correctly, getting proper routines going, doing exercise, started running again, just everything. So part of that was buying books, getting reading again. So I was reading, this is one of the first ones I bought. I was buying books like self-help books and books on investment, so just doing studying to improve myself. So this is one of the first ones I bought, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Struck gold with this. It's a really, really good book. So I read it cover to cover, I went through it again, highlighting things that stood out to me. First page has got like people who have praised this book, just so you know it's not a joke book. It's not like I just fell for some sort of con that's all rubbish. We've got psychologists, president of Procter & Gamble, they've all left their reviews on it. Commissioner of Higher Education in Utah. Other authors, psychologists, Fortune magazine, USA Today, Business Week. James C. Fletcher, director of NASA. I can imagine he's a very smart guy. He liked this book. It's a proper book. It's a proper book. Anyway, so the reason I'm talking about this is the video is not about this book, but in this book it talks about sharpening your saw, and being a professional jeweler, I translated that to honing my skill. So now I'm not working full-time, day in, day out. There are things I'm not practicing as much as I used to. So with that in mind, to hone my skill, I wanted to make something that just practice something like specifically. So I'm thinking of this design, which is, where does this come from? I saw this in a dentist on a Christmas tree as a Christmas decoration. I thought, I quite like that, it'd be a pendant or something. So anyway, I studied it, or remembered it. When I got home, I remembered it again. I thought, I'm going to draw that because in the future I want to try and make that. So today's the day. This is good practice for me to saw piercing, cutting things the same distance, getting all the angles correct, symmetry, everything sharp and nice. This is quite a good practice piece, so I'm going to make this today. Okay, so looking at the design, it's not just a shape here. I'm not just cutting that out. It's 4-sided, so it crosses over like that. There might have even been 8. I'm not sure. I'm going to do 4 anyway and see how I feel. I can change it if I want. Yeah, so I'm just going to make that and then make 4 of those and then join them together. Okay, so I've got to figure out the design, I've got to finalize it. So squared paper, I usually do my design on squared paper. I might do a video on designing jewellery actually, because I've got a few tips to share. Anyway, yeah, I like the squares because they're little distances you can work things out. So that's about 5 centimeters, about 2.5 up. So I did 8, 4, 90 degrees, 45 degrees. It's all quite mathematical. So I'm just going to figure out the design and then translate that down to a size that fits on the metal I've got. One trick you can do is just draw it like I've drawn this one using all these lines. I could take that to the photocopy and just reduce it down to like 50% or whatever will fit on my metal. It's a good way to you're drawing it big, so it's easy to get all your lines nice and sharp and lined up perfectly, and then just a reduced photocopy can be helpful. I have done that in the past. Okay, right, I got it. So, the diamond, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Alright, this is it. Okay, so this is my design. I shrunk it down as half the size. Ended up just drawing it by hand, so the accuracy training started literally while still the pencil was in my hand. So anyway, that's a good size now. I want to make it that size, and next I'm going to transfer it onto the metal. So I'm literally just going to cut that out a bit smaller, the paper around it, and then just glue it on. Just normal stick glue. Glue it onto the metal, and then we'll just cut around it. So what I do is I cut it out kind of good, maybe not quite up to the line, and then when I'm going around the corners I'll leave little rounded bits just where I'm turning the saw blade, just leaving it to filing to get it really accurate to how I want. But this is, like I was just saying, this is hand drawn, so I am leaving it up to my eyesight and my judgement to get it really accurate, because that's part of what I want to practice. It's not just the physical using of the tools to get things good. I want my judgement to be trained up. Okay, just one little thing. I may as well fill this video up with things that come to mind that might be helpful to you. You've got to have a bit of strategy when you're cutting things out. Like I said, I was worried I might not get 4 of these out of this metal. I may do, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'm being a bit careful. That's why I put that right on the edge, lining things up to the edges as close as I can to give the maximum amount of space around it. Also, that little thin bit, nothing was going to go there, so that was a bit of no man's land. So I just hacked that off straight across there, and now that gives me access to cut quite easily this way, rather than going like around there, trying to zigzag around all the difficult angle changes. If there's a side you're definitely not going to use, just cut that off and it'll give you better access. You do a better job. I think it's a quick way to work as well. Spend a little bit extra time just cutting off a piece. Just makes the job easier, so you'll work a bit faster. Also, glue is not massively strong, that's stick glue, my one anyway, so I'm kind of keep my finger kind of close to where I'm cutting to stop the upward motion of the saw blade pulling the paper off. And this saw blade is proving really good, so I really don't want to break it, so hopefully I can do the whole thing without breaking the saw blade. So if you're thinking of doing a sort of training piece, everything is practice. Don't just rush to cut out the piece. There's practice in actually the design, the laying out the design, preparing of the metal, not breaking saw blades. There's just lots of little things you're practicing as you do it. Slowing down as I approach where I want it to finish. Practicing cutting straight lines. Cutting out to here. Let's say you want to do quite a severe direction change, yeah? You don't just turn the saw blade because you're just twisting it. You have to keep it moving as you turn it. And I'm not trying to do that right in the corner. I'll save that for after. So just before I get to the corner, then I'll start turning it. So just keep going up and down, up and down. I'm not even doing any of that. Just directly up and down, up and down. And then as long as you're sawing, you should be able to move it quite easily. If it starts to grip, you're twisting it, you're turning too much. So just saw more and turn slower. And there you go. I'm ready, pointing in the right direction for going this way now. Again, just to emphasise, I'm not trying to be really accurate up to the line at this stage. Just basically cutting it out. These lines are hand drawn anyway, so I'm not even really taking my lines that seriously. Okay, this is even more of a severe direction change. See if I can do it. There you go. It's almost like created a space where I can move the saw blade around quite easily. Holding the piece secure. I like my saw blade moving quite close to the edge of the peg. I don't know if you're noticing me sort of moving it and looking, checking where I am. Don't want to be hitting it obviously, but don't want to be miles away because then you get vibrations. Stops you cutting nicely. You could find online a complicated pattern, just complicated lines, and just get that on paper, print it out, stick it to a bit of metal, just practice cutting it out. So that's good enough for me now to start testing my abilities on lining things up nicely just by eye. So no longer rely on the paper, get rid of that. I might buff the surface so there's no illusions on little dark patches and stuff going on. I will simply start using my needle files and paper disc or whatever to get that shape nice. So cutting into corners, went around it with my needle file, got the flat bits flat, just tidying up the points, make sure they're all lining up with each other. I did actually put some lines on the back, look, my dividers and square. So I've got a guide to line things up symmetrically, just tidying up the corners. So my advice for that is do one side, then the other. Don't try and get it parallel and work on the side underneath that you can't see. Only work on what you can see. So my blade is literally tilted forward on purpose. So this is a trick I've mentioned before on my channel. Holding things in front of you at your bench peg, there may be faults with it that are not so obvious. So what I like to do is hold things up to the window. And that looks really bad to me straight away. You can see the points either side of the top center, the way they come down, the right side looks like it's coming down lower. This piece on the bottom looks longer and then just longer and thinner. So it's really telling me a lot. Things are more obvious faults than things that need to be worked on. That looks like it's coming out a totally different angle as well. Anyway, so yeah, hold things up at the window. Blue sky is always nice if you've got blue sky where you live. Sorry to the people in the UK. You have to hold up to a grey sky. And yeah, you can spot things. Made a few tweaks, improved it. I want to see it because the design is actually that shape repeated left, right, and then I'm going to be joining it again on the bottom. So it is like this quarter is like the design that gets repeated. So I want to see one side separate from the other. So looking at that, it's not bad. Perhaps that needs to come down a little bit more. And then the other side, I think that's a bit better. Anyway, I'm now looking at it closely. There are minute differences. So this is the training. It's not just on my ability to get it really accurate, it's sort of practicing my attitude as well on doing a really good job. Constantly trying to test it and improve it, and then having the patience to actually do those minute adjustments rather than just deciding, oh, it's good enough and move on. It's actually looked really good filed, but now I'm papering it. It's actually more work than I thought I was going to need to do. So I'm just going to do the easy to reach parts first, and then I'll start concentrating, going right up in there. I mentioned this before on my channel. I did do a video on using these as well. You can modify them a little bit to get into tight corners. What I do is the paper side, the back of them, just skim it on a coarse buff stick and just sharpens the edge, takes it to a blade. It's very light work. I'm certainly not pushing into it. I want that blade, I want that paper disc to stay straight as well. If I start pushing hard, you're going to flex it and it's going to be a bit bendy and weird. Another little tip, use your digital calipers to get things to sort of find ways to judge one side to the other. So just gripping it like that, 8.62, this measurement was quite good, 8.59, so that's really close. I can go from there straight down. This one wasn't quite as good, 608 that side, and I'll be careful to line things up correctly. Oh, 6.02, 6.01, 6.02. Oh, 6.11, there you go, that's more like what I had last time. So yeah, a bit of a difference there. but looking at it, the top half I'm quite happy with, the angles and the symmetry. I can't get over this one looking different to that one. This one's, I've made a few adjustments and I think I'm a bit happier with it now. I don't know if I keep staring at it. Little things like there, I sort of feel like it comes out more one side than the other, but it's getting there, it's pretty close. So I'm not going to make any more adjustments. I'm going to have lunch and then I'll be interested to look at it again. There may be something really obvious that I want to adjust to improve it after a break. Sometimes it's worth having to take in your mind and eyes off of a piece before moving forward when you get to a stage where you're a little bit indecisive about how to improve it. Right, classic, as usual. Had a bit of a break, come back, immediately got a new idea. I designed it on squared paper, so why not just put that back on the squared paper and check its accuracy. My original design was 12 across, 6 up, so I just basically reduced it 50%, so it's 6 and 3 up. So I drew these lines on the paper, tried to line it up best I could on there. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect. Look, you can see that point is a little bit short of that line, and that one slightly goes over it. That point, I mean, I'm looking straight down it. It's perhaps up a little bit. Might be a few illusions with shadows and stuff because the camera's not going directly down on this as good as I can with my head above it. That point's slightly off as well. So it's really good, but putting it on this grid is really highlighting some inaccuracy. So this is helpful to get it even better. But I'm quite happy with that, considering that's the first time I'm checking it on this graph bit of paper. Should have been doing this from the start really. So I made another small adjustment. I'm aware that it's not perfect, but it is handmade. I'm happy with it basically, so I'm leaving it as it is. Gone around it with my dividers. You can see some lines around the outside. I am now going to cut out some shapes around the inside. My dividers, I can only follow the outside, so there's that sort of shape down there. Just going to have to freestyle it by hand. I'll scratch a line on there best I can, cut it out close to that, and then just use my files and work slowly and carefully to get it really, really nice. So I'm doing that next. This is probably going to be more difficult to get it really accurate than going around the outside. But anyway, that's the point of it. It's difficult. I want to practice it and get to a good level. So same as before, sort of cutting up to my lines, but not really. I'll save it for my filing to get the accuracy I'm after. Just got to be careful when you're cutting holes out of things. It gets more and more delicate. So you've got to think about how you're holding it, the force you're putting on it. Yeah, got to be careful. So next up, I cut them out reasonably well. I'm just getting on my straight bits extra straight and get the corners a bit sharper with this needle file, small size needle file, quite a fine grade. It's a bit worn out as well, I can see it's a bit shiny. But the back of these is the barrette style, donkey back, safety back, whatever you want to call them. Grind them down, get them even thinner. Because it's quite a fine tooth one, it's delicate work anyway. It doesn't need to be really strong, so I'm not missing having that extra strength towards the end. Just work it really delicately. So it's thinner, you can get it in tighter spaces, do more jobs with it. Alright, so I've done a bit more work. That's cut out now, how I want to repeat it. So everything's all flat and smooth. I just got to repeat that now, so I'm sticking that to my plate of metal. Hopefully I can get 3, I think I will. 3 more out of that, and then we will start to join them together. Okay, right, I've got 3 done now, almost finished. They're all pretty good. Well, there's the first one, which is good, and the other 2 are almost at that level. So I'm getting on with the 4th one now, the last one. And just thinking about, this is meant to be a practice piece, yeah. And what's on my mind now is the actual physical ability, like my dexterity of my hands and my skill and attention to detail and all that, that's all still there. What I need to work on more is my attitude, my mental towards doing this. Because what's happening is, because there's a lot of work to do, it's quite simple, but it's quite time consuming. And I've got to make 4 quite good. And I've become impatient. So I start working really fast and then going off my lines a little bit and having to correct it. Getting not necessarily mistakes, but doing things not quite as good as I should be, and that's just down to my impatience of doing it. So that's realizing that's more what I'm missing rather than the actual skill-wise of my hands and what I'm capable of making. Yeah, it's my attitude. So this 4th one, I'm just going to say, right, it's taking a long time. I don't know why I'm rushing. It's not like it's got to be ready at the end of the day or anything. So I'm just going to practice slowing down a little bit and then actually concentrating with the attitude of getting it right more than getting it finished. So yeah, that's something that's come to mind as I've been working on these. Just get a bit of video at this stage. Yeah, you can see these. You can see, I mean, it's really difficult to make two things separately and have them mirroring each other. So I'm thinking of doing, they are going to be not joined up like that. I'm thinking of having a bit of square wire. I'll make some square wire the same thickness as that is wide. So they'll be joined up like that. And then that'll go on top. Sort of like that. That making sense? So they'll all be joined to the square wire down the middle, and then I'll cut out the wire in the gaps. So I've got my, get out of the way. So I've got my wire, say they're soldered together like that. And then when that one goes on there, all four, those two are going to be same distance, those two are going to be same distance, like horizontal and vertical. And you know the trick when you've got two flat things, you've got a slot this side and a slot this side, and you go opposite and they can go like that. So I'm going to try that trick with these. So this is an important part of jewellery. You've got to think ahead about what you're going to do, not just what you want it to look like. You've got to think about how that's going to be achieved, and then question your method of how to do that. Is there a better way of doing it? Is there a quicker way, cheaper way, whatever, or a neater way, easier way to do a good job? So I'm thinking of that now. So this one, I'll put the bar, so I'm joining these two together, I'll put the bar down the middle, and I'll solder there and there, but not that end bit. So when I cut this off, when I cut these out, that one will have to be cut out, both sides, but that one just there, and then just pull that bar out. And then on the second one, I'll only solder one end, and then, well, I'll put a full length bar in, just the distances and everything are good, correct. But only solder it there, and then just chop it all out, and then I'll have two bits that should be able to just slot over each other nicely. So that's the plan, that's the way I'm going to do it. Okay, so you can see that I've got that bar going from that end to the middle, but then this one is just on the end. And I did that so I can slot these together. There you go. How easy is that now to solder that together? Because if I wasn't doing that, I'd have to solder two flat, and then that one would be quite easy. But the last one, I'd have to hold it carefully and line it all up. It's totally possible, but way more tricky than doing it this way. Look at that, I just let go of it. It's not even soldered, it's really tight in a good position. So I'm gonna separate them again, and I will chop out the bars properly, and then I'll look over them a bit more carefully, make sure they're all being all symmetrical, like all the holes I've cut, try and tidy them up a little bit. Some are still a little bit messy, because like I said earlier, I was working a bit fast on a few of them, and they're not as neat as they should be. Cutting out the last bit now, just trying to get these holes all symmetrical and stuff. When I use my 10 times loop and look at what I've cut, under 10 times magnification, a lot of your work you've done will look terrible compared to the naked eye. So if you want to get things really precise, get them accurate while looking through one of these. But like I said, I feel like my skill's still there. It's just my attitude to doing a good job. And it's so much more difficult when you're working for someone, and that someone is earning money from your time and effort at the bench. So they're putting you under pressure to do things quickly and really well. So there's an obligation to do things to a high level. I don't have that pressure here, so it's double hard. Just on your own, doing things is a bit of an endeavour just for enjoyment, or just to learn a new skill or whatever. Cool. So these two are cut out now. See that? It's one of those things, the more time you spend looking at something you're trying to work and make nicely, it's almost always inevitable. The more you don't like it, the more you've seen it. You just find all the faults, and then you try and fix them, and it doesn't go as well as you thought. You end up just not liking the whole thing. So anyway, I have got it to a sort of good level, and they match each other quite well. That's one thing I've got quite good. Like the dimensions, the sizes, the angles and everything. Just some of the cutouts don't quite match perfectly, but I'm being quite strict on myself. So I'm just doing the surface. It's not really polished or anything, I just want the surface flat. Okay, so let's slot these together and do a solder. If you're getting any ideas, by the way, for designs like similar to this, you're welcome to use it. I've got no problems with people making the things that I make on my channel. It's kind of what the whole channel's for. So that, obviously that's a sharp, dangerous looking thing, but a smaller version might be an idea for a Christmassy style pendant. It's a bit snowflakey, isn't it? And the way I'm putting it together as well might give you ideas about how to assemble some sort of design in the future. So I've got it lined up nicely there. Bit flux, bit heat. Just the left and right, the centre's lining up really well, so that's good. I just want to tack on this bit. This bit's just sitting exactly where I want it soldered, like really easily. So I'm just going to put a bit of solder on that, and that starts me off getting it together. It'll need a little tweak, but it's quite flexy. I won't have to bend anything to get it in line. That flame is way too fierce. I've just been to my jeweller friend's shop. She's got business, yeah, proper jeweller with a shop, but she's scared of mounting platinum. So I was there for her. She's got an engraving machine, computerized engraving machine, so she did the engraving inside of a ring I made for me, and then for payment I melted some platinum down for her because she's scared of doing it. Here we go. Okay, cool. So that's tapped in position, just in one spot. So it's still a delicate little thing, but at least I can proceed after that now. A bit easier. So next day, just been tweaking it, cut the ends off nicely, just looking over it, checking my right angles. It's actually really good, the angles on it. Did that quite well. So that trick of sliding together was really a good move. Yeah, looking at it with my eyes, well, I'll show you on the camera. So just looking at it with my eyes, this kind of distance looks really good. They're all nice and sharp and nice and straight. They all match each other. They're all in line. All looks really good. But I know, like say I was working in London, this would happen all the time. I spent loads of time or something. I thought I'd made it really well, really carefully. And I'd show my boss, and then he would pick up his 10 times loop, and I'd be like, oh God, I didn't even check it with 10 times loop. So I didn't even know what he's going to find. So he'd start looking at it and be like, that one doesn't go to a nice point. That one needs a load more work, need a thinner saw blade, they don't match, like that side doesn't match that side, and you just find loads of faults with it. So I'd get sent back to the bench, and quite often I have to spend like another hour or so on something. So yeah, it's just the dexterity, the skill in my hands, I've still got it, but what was missing on the ones that don't match my first one is just the care and attention, the time, the attention to detail. So that is a really important part of doing a good job on things. So I reckon, from reading the comments I get on videos on my channel, I reckon there's a lot of jewellers, a lot of people watch my videos. They come across as really knowledgeable from what they comment on the videos. I reckon they are as good as me, if not better. I'd happily sit and learn from them. I've got a sense they really know what they're doing. But there are other people who are sort of intermediate level and watch my videos to see how I'm making things like crisp and nice and sharp. I reckon totally, people like that totally have got ability to be as good as me, or if not better. They just haven't had the experience I've had of working for really fussy employers where they're constantly sending you back to their bench to do a little bit more, to tidy this up, do that, just flood that solder a little bit, tidy that up, paper disc this, that. It's just that final attention. And when you're making expensive things by hand, like rich people are very fussy, they want things to be right when they're spending like 10 grand or something, so fair play to them. Yeah, that's all it is, I think. Like I'm experiencing on this one, I've got a physical manifestation of what where I need to improve myself now. It's just my attention to detail is kind of waned a little bit. I haven't got someone like my old boss telling me to do things a little bit better, like tidy this up, tidy that up. So that's all it is. But as for my skill, my dexterity in my hands, I appear to still have it. Just need to work more carefully, spend a bit more time finishing things off. So that's it. That's what I learned for doing this. But otherwise, basically, it's quite a cool little thing. Look, comparing it to the decoration I saw was literally like this big, quite a big thing. And it seemed more sort of long. This is more of a ball somehow. But anyway, I wasn't trying to copy that, it's just the design I wanted to replicate. But it's quite a cool little thing, quite happy with it. I'll keep that somewhere to look at, sort of fun things I have on the bench. So if you want to try exactly that, very welcome to. I designed it on square paper, you can literally copy what I did. If not, if you don't want to make something, if you want to practice sort of something similar, but you don't want to bother actually mucking about with angles and soldering and joining bits together, you could just cut out, do some saw piercing out of a plate of metal. You can get a design off the internet, just get it on paper, stick it to the plate, and then just cut it out, practice that. It's all good. This was all straight lines and sharp points. You could do another one, all rounds and swirls and stuff. All takes practice, and it's all good work, going through the motions doing it. But yeah, I quite enjoy making it. I'm quite happy with that. It's quite a fun little thing. I'll keep it on the bench and look at it sometimes. So that was it. That's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, like I said at the start, I'll say thank you to the patrons. I asked for patrons a little bit of financial help for the channel, and enables me to make more videos. So I want to share everything I learned over working over 20 years full time as a professional jeweller. I learned a lot. There's a lot of stuff I still haven't seen online, so I do search what other people are doing. Quite advanced, the more advanced end of making jewellery making stuff. I want to share some of that stuff, and patrons enable me to do that. So if you want to help me out, and I'll help you learn to make jewellery, you become a patron. There's a link in the description to do that. Then become a Diamond member. If not, just watch, enjoy, click like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and hope you join me again on the next upload. Bye bye.